So Brian reiterated that our views on inflation remain largely unchanged and that we still expect inflation to persist between the range of 3 to 5% for longer than what the market currently expects. And certainly that is reflected in terms of our difference in views with regards to the market's expectations of significant rate cuts this year and aggressively into the next year. However, he did acknowledge our concerns regarding the outlook for earnings. Having said that, earnings have fared a lot better than what we expected, and he discussed several factors that may have been supportive in that regard, notably that consumers have reduced their debt burden since the 2008-2009 financial crisis. They are a lot less sensitive to interest rates, and there is a very small percentage actually of mortgage holders who actually have adjustable rate mortgages. Many are fixed for quite long periods into the future. Additionally, he highlighted that there has been significant real wealth which was created as a result of the COVID stimulus checks, and that has provided more of a support to the economy than one might have expected otherwise over the past year. Nonetheless, there are still a number of risks which keep us awake at night and which we debate regularly every morning, which includes heightened geopolitical tension, both sovereign and corporate indebtedness, regulatory risks, and of course, the potential risks that Brian did highlight on the corporate earnings front. He did emphasize that we deliberately put together portfolios which are not reliant on one particular binary outcome. And our goal is for our portfolios to perform very well if our views are correct, but to protect capital, even if our views turn out to be wrong. Brian then handed over to Ishrith, who gave you hopefully a sense of how investment ideas make their way into our portfolios and how that coming together of the top-down sort of thematic, macroeconomic driven views tie up with finding the best bottom-up valuation-driven opportunities that meet that particular theme. And he spoke about how there will be potential winners and losers in the energy transition and how as investors we can actually benefit from that. He looked at the direct correlation between global energy demand and prosperity and the fact that the demand for energy is not going anywhere, particularly coming out of emerging economies, which now are looking to industrialize at the same pace that developed economies did historically. And that while solar and wind energy have increased exponentially in terms of their growth, they still only account for a very small fraction of the overall growth in energy demand over the past decade, never mind sort of the total energy needs. Most of those needs do come from areas like Asia and China, and currently coal and oil and the more sort of hydrocarbon intensive fuels are still the predominant source of energy for the globe. Most economies, over 75% of the global population requires more energy than they produce. And despite the growth of electrification, there is still significant needs that need to be met by coal. However, gas is a promising alternative. It is as dense, but it does have less damaging consequences for the environment. So we are starting to see increasing switch, obviously, out of coal and oil towards gas, which is a positive thing in terms of meeting needs as well as being less damaging to the environment. Unfortunately, there is no scenario in which oil and gas demand or supply can shrink significantly in the next decade, without creating significant problems for economies. And I think obviously here in South Africa, we see directly the impact of energy crises, particularly on emerging economies. And then he provided insights into how this all fits together with regards to our positioning in the space. We have significant investment in businesses that will benefit from the energy transition in some form, but also in the old energy sector, we have exposure to businesses with low production costs and with a tilt towards those that are providing gas in terms of meeting that less carbon intensive footprint. So unfortunately, it does seem that old energy and new energy will have to be part of the solution together. But overall, I hope that gave you a really good sense of how our process uses both that forward-looking element from a top-down macroeconomic side, as well as looking for the best opportunities from a bottom-up perspective to make their way in the portfolios. Again, I want to emphasize that we have no particular one binary view that our portfolios are overly reliant with regards to us getting that right, but we actually try to put as many different investment ideas in our portfolios as possible with different drivers to actually create as stable a return profile over time, and importantly, to make sure that we always protect capital. Something that's very important, particularly when there is a theme that gets sort of taken up by the market, which may create quite significant risks for capital losses at those levels. And ultimately, we spend every day putting together that top-down macro strategy. And then, of course, our investment professionals, both here in Cape Town and in Singapore, scour the globe daily for the best investment opportunities to invest your capital in. And we're confident that that will generate the right investment outcomes, as it has done for more than 4 decades for Foord investors over time. There is a survey that's going to pop up when this session ends, or when you end your session. Please do fill that in. We really would love your candid feedback. We want to make these sessions as productive as possible for you. And thank you so much for your time today. Have a lovely day.